What if Pirates of the Caribbean starred Matthew McConaughey as Jack Sparrow and Robert De Niro as Barbossa? Well, it almost did. Not only that, but it was almost a straight-up pirate movie, devoid of any of the supernatural elements that made it stand out from every pirate film that came before. At one point, it was also nearly a direct-to-video release too, and almost cancelled entirely. So how do we go from that to one of the most successful and influential blockbusters of the 21st century, revitalizing a dead genre and launching a billion-dollar franchise? To find out, let's dive in and take a look at what could have been Pirates of the Caribbean. Hot off of writing Aladdin, screenwriting duo Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio felt they finally had the power to write any movie they wanted. Both had grown up loving classic swashbucklers like Captain Blood and the Crimson Pirate, and they dreamed of reviving the genre for modern audiences. Their twist was to fully embrace the supernatural elements often tied to pirate lore. Rather than merely mention a cursed treasure, they wanted that curse brought vividly to life on screen. They felt if they could adapt an existing IP, it would make it easier to sell to studios. This would eventually bring them to the theme park ride, The Pirates of the Caribbean, which had the supernatural elements already that they wanted to incorporate into their film. Unfortunately, after pitching it to Disney, they were turned down, as pirate movies were often costly and many recent attempts had failed at the box office, like Cutthroat Island, which was infamous for its massive budget and subsequent failure, even leading to the bankruptcy of its production company, Carolco Pictures. A decade later, new leadership at Disney began exploring ways to adapt their theme park attractions into movies, eyeing Pirates of the Caribbean, Country Bears Jamboree, and The Haunted Mansion. As a result, Disney would develop a treatment for pirates that focused on Will, a prison guard with aspirations of joining the governor's elite guard, who sees his dreams crushed when the arrogant captain of the guard, Defoe, rejects and humiliates him in front of the governor and his daughter Elizabeth. Later, Elizabeth is abducted by the infamous pirate Blackheart and held for an outrageous ransom. In response, the governor sends Defoe to deliver the payment, unaware that his trusted captain is secretly allied with Blackheart and plotting to overthrow him. Determined to save Elizabeth, Will breaks an unlikely ally out of prison to help him, Jack, a charming rogue and former member of Blackheart's bloodthirsty crew. Together, the uneasy partners embark on a dangerous mission to rescue Elizabeth, battling treachery on both land and sea. In the final clash, Blackheart is defeated, Defoe is exposed and imprisoned, and Will wins Elizabeth's heart. But the adventure ends with an ironic twist. Jack is appointed the new captain of the guard, much to Will's dismay. At the top of Disney's wish list to turn this treatment into a script was Elliott and Rossio, but after Disney found out they were busy with another project, they didn't bother reaching out to the duo, and instead hired Jay Walpert, who had recently written The Count of Monte Cristo. After he got the ball rolling, Disney hired Australian writer Stuart Beattie to improve it, who had also written a pirates movie inspired by the Disney ride called Quest of the Caribbean, which he had previously unsuccessfully shopped to Disney. And his draft renamed many of the characters. Captain Defoe became Lieutenant Norrington, Blackheart became Captain Wraith, and Elizabeth and Jack took on avian-inspired surnames, Swan and Sparrow, respectively. In Beattie's version, Norrington wasn't the upright naval officer audiences would later know, but a power-hungry schemer determined to rule the Caribbean. His initial plan was to secure his position by marrying the governor's daughter, consolidating influence through marriage. When she rejected him in the first act, Norrington turned to darker methods, forging an alliance with a ruthless pirate captain whose ultimate goal, much like the legendary Henry Morgan in the 1600s, was to seize control of the entire Caribbean. In the second half of the film, the pirates try to take over Port Royal, which ends in an armada of British ships going after the pirates. However, after blockbuster producer Jerry Bruckheimer came aboard, he lamented that the script was a straightforward pirate movie, and not really something he'd want to go see, much less make. While Bruckheimer loved the old swashbuckling pirate adventures he grew up with, he knew the script was missing the kind of hook that would make modern audiences care. To find it, he turned to writers Elliott and Rossio, who revealed that they had been waiting a decade for the chance to tackle Pirates of the Caribbean, but only if they could do it their way. If Bruckheimer wasn't on board with their twist, they wouldn't bother. Their idea centered on a literal curse, treasure that would doom any pirate bold enough to steal it. This supernatural element instantly set their story apart from every pirate movie that had come before, while still tying directly to the Disneyland ride that inspired it. Elliott and Rossio believe the film's real power came from the Pirates of the Caribbean name, and the nostalgia audiences felt for the attraction. They pitched it simply: pirates who become skeletons in the moonlight. When Bruckheimer heard it, he knew that it was a movie he wanted to see. However, before a single page of this new draft of the script was written, newly signed on director Gore Verbinski was so eager to dive in that he began working immediately, storyboarding the film using Elliott and Rossio's outline. The process was pure chaos, but that chaos sparked creativity, and out of it came some of the film's most iconic moments. moments: Jack Sparrow's grand entrance on a sinking boat, the skeletal monkey, the one-eyed pirate, and skeletons marching along the ocean floor. In some ways, the lack of a script was an advantage, allowing ideas to evolve naturally out of this primordial soup the team was swimming in. Meanwhile, Elliott and Rossio worked to shape all those ideas into the next draft of the screenplay. After the commercial failure of The Country Bears, Disney CEO Michael Eisner wanted to abandon the idea of adapting theme park attractions into big-budget films, and called director Gore Verbinski and producer Jerry Bruckheimer to shut Pirates of the Caribbean down entirely. But when Eisner made a trip to Bruckheimer's Santa Monica offices the following week, intending to kill the project, Verbinski was ready, as he showed off the concept art and storyboards he'd commissioned months earlier in his excitement to make the film. The striking imagery won Eisner over on the spot. Still, wary of leaning too heavily on the ride's imagery, he ordered Verbinski and Bruckheimer to strip out several direct references to the attraction, such as a scene where Sparrow and Turner enter a cave via a waterfall. Eisner also feared teenagers would dismiss the movie as a kid's film, so he demanded it have a subtitle, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Verbinski hated it, and argued the curse was on the Aztec gold, not the ship, but Eisner insisted, hoping that if the film was a hit, they could do a different subtitle for each sequel, like the Indiana Jones series. However, Verbinski got a small act of rebellion when he asked the marketing team to make the subtitle as tiny as possible on the posters. When it came time to casting, Disney's first choice for Jack Sparrow was Matthew McConaughey. The studio felt he bore a passing resemblance to a young Burt Lancaster, star of The Crimson Pirate, one of the film's key inspirations. They were also impressed by his work on the then unreleased Reign of Fire, where he'd reportedly brought great energy to the set, thrown himself into the action scenes, and remained patient during long waits for the film's complex pyrotechnics, qualities they felt would translate well to the challenges of shooting a pirate epic at sea. However, at one point Disney also debated releasing the film directly on home video, foregoing a theatrical release. If they had proceeded in that direction, they felt either Christopher Walken or Cary Elwes would be the ideal choice for Jack Sparrow. However, when Stuart Beattie came on to rewrite the script, he envisioned the role for fellow Australian Hugh Jackman, hence the name Jack Sparrow. But in the early 2000s, Jackman wasn't yet a major box office draw, and Disney ultimately decided to look elsewhere. Once Bruckheimer joined the project, he wanted a lead who could shatter the perception that Pirates of the Caribbean would be a tame, kid-friendly Disney park ride adaptation. Johnny Depp, though never the face of a major blockbuster, had a reputation for bringing quirkier characters to life. The team believed he could elevate the film creatively while drawing in teenagers and young adults who might otherwise dismiss it as a family-only affair. At the time, Depp was interested in voicing a Disney character in one of their animated movies, so he could finally share one of his films with his young family, since most of his previous work had been geared toward adult audiences. But Disney chairman Dick Cook saw a bigger opportunity and decided to pitch him on something far more ambitious: Pirates of the Caribbean. The idea of a real pirate movie, complete with sword fights, instantly caught Depp's attention. As he'd say, isn't it every boy's dream to be a pirate and basically get away with everything? Who wouldn't want to play a pirate? After Depp signed on, Disney and the rest of the creative team assumed Depp would be playing Jack Sparrow as a charming, debonair swashbuckler, in the vein of his roles in Don Juan DeMarco and Chocolat, a more traditional romantic leading man. Instead, Depp assumed he had been hired because of his history of playing unconventional characters, and saw pirates as the ultimate outsiders, rebels and outcasts, the rock stars of their day, an analogy that would shape his entire performance, as he based the character off of the Rolling Stones' Keith Richards. However, Depp shrewdly didn't play the character like this during rehearsals, knowing he'd be asked to tone it down. He saved his full performance for when the cameras were rolling, and it immediately caught everyone off guard. His appearance alone raised eyebrows, leading to a compromise where he removed a few of Sparrow's gold-capped teeth, which he had placed on by a dentist, but he had anticipated that executives would demand fewer, so Depp had intentionally asked for extra gold teeth from the start, using them as a bargaining chip, with the final on-screen count matching exactly what he'd envisioned all along. Once the dailies came in, studio executives grew nervous, convinced Depp was portraying the character as drunk and effeminate. Even Disney CEO Michael Eisner accused him of ruining the film. When pressed to rein it in, Depp reminded them they knew exactly who they had hired, urging them to trust his instincts or replace him outright. Feeling that Orlando Bloom already filled the traditional leading man role as the film's Errol Flynn type, the studio ultimately decided to let Depp carry on with his unorthodox approach. Robert De Niro was originally offered the role of Barbossa but turned it down, convinced the film would flop like so many pirate movies before it. When Pirates became a massive hit, he regretted the decision, and later accepted the role of Captain Shakespeare in Stardust. Jeffrey Rush, who ultimately landed the part of Barbossa, was reportedly Verbinski's second choice. though in a letter, the director joked Rush was actually third, behind Alec Guinness and Peter Sellers. Both men had long since passed away, so the remark was intended as a tongue-in-cheek compliment rather than a slight. Rush also played a role in shaping the rest of the cast, suggesting Orlando Bloom for Will Turner after working with him on Ned Kelly. Before Pirates of the Caribbean hit theaters, the pirate genre was seen as box office poison and the product of a bygone era, and the fact that the film was based on a theme park ride only added to the gamble. But Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio revitalized the concept with the supernatural curse. Gore Verbinski's early storyboards and concept art, created before the script was even finished, shaped many of the film's most iconic moments, and Johnny Depp's risky, eccentric performance turned Jack Sparrow into a pop culture icon, earning him an Oscar nomination. What could have been another costly flop in a dead genre instead became one of the most successful adventure films of the 21st century, proving that sometimes the greatest treasures are found when you dare sail into uncharted waters. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of Hollywood's untold stories and unmade movies.